Okay, good morning. I'd like to call back to order the Finance and Economic Development Committee and Fiscal Year 2025-2026 Departmental Budget Reviews. Let the record reflect that Councilmember Bolosan is excused for today. Councilmember Kaua'i is on his way, and Council Chair Raposo just stepped out for a second. On the schedule today, we'll be hearing from the Transportation Agency, Housing Agency, Office of Elderly Affairs, Office of the County Auditor, and Office of the County Clerk. Today is our final day for departmental budget reviews. As we do each morning, we'll take public testimony at the beginning relating to any of the departments or agencies that we're reviewing for the day. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to testify? Seeing none? Thank you. We'll now begin our review of the budget details for our Transportation Agency. Celia, if you want to come and provide a synopsis, and then we'll go through the budget.
Thank you very much.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Celia Mahikoa, Executive with the Transportation Agency, and I have along with me two of my staff members. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Can you just speak a little louder? I'm struggling to hear it. Is your mic on too?
Hello, council members. Leonard Peters, Assistant Executive on Transportation.
Winnie Hepner, Accountant for Transportation.
Thank you. All right, so we want to thank you for this opportunity to be here and to review our current budget request, along with just a brief summary of how things have been going over this current fiscal year and more recently. So I think overall, thankful service has been going well. We've been able to sustain a good, safe operation for the community. And we have been having, unfortunately, throughout this fiscal year, still the ongoing challenge of meeting the manpower needs in order to reinstate Sunday service. That seems to be the biggest challenge we've encountered. However, our operations leadership team had restructured our training process and implemented that within the past couple of months, and we've been seeing an significant increase in the success within our drivers who we bring on board to train up to get their CDL with passenger endorsement licensing requirements. So I believe it's over the past month we've had at least 3 who have gotten fully licensed. So we're seeing that pick up. Needless to say, we're not nearly at the place where we need to be to reinstate Sunday, but we're thankful the pace has picked up in that direction. The additional challenge we have manpower-wise is dispatch. They are also a core part of our operation and are required to be there for service to be in place. And we have been making some success in within the past month. We've been able to identify individuals who are interested, but we continue to look into that and seek ways to get additional applicants to successfully get on board for our dispatch team. Beyond that, I'd like to just go into the any questions that you might have related to.
Any questions on the synopsis, other members?
I have some overarching questions. And first of all, thank you and thank all our bus drivers. And it seems like it really makes a difference for a lot of people. I was trying to, like, the pay is in the highway fund. I was trying to, where's the page that has what they get paid? Because I'm trying to figure out why we can't attract through Not 303, 299, like I think it's 303.
199 starts and then 303.
204 has all of our
So
operations.
they get paid basically $61,000 a year, is that what they get paid?
Drivers do, yes.
Drivers do? Okay.
Page 303 has the.
Yeah, I was finding it where it's got it in the parenthesis. Because I actually think if I was a good driver, I would think it would be a fun job. I wouldn't want that. If I was a good driver, I wouldn't have that kind of confidence to want to do that because I'd have too much responsibility. But why are we not being able to attract them? Is it mostly the money? Is it mostly the CDL license? What is the limitation?
From what we've experienced, over the past couple of years, there's been a couple of factors. One was just the number of individuals interested in applying had tapered off significantly with the COVID situation and recovering from that.
Okay.
It had tapered off significantly. The number of individuals applying has been returning, thankfully. At the same time, we are experiencing just some growing pains. There has been an increase in the attentiveness within licensing to where our drivers are needing to be a lot more thorough with the entire process when getting the license.
Okay.
I mean, they're just raising the bar
Okay.
of excellence within the operation. And in doing so, thankfully our team got together and have reassessed the training situation to meet those upgraded requirements.
So how long is the shift?
A shift is typically 8 hours.
8 hours. So that's reasonable. And then when we have the 61 drivers on each of these pages, some of them I see are dollar funded because it's mostly coming out of the GET money. That 61 drivers, is that including returning to the longer hours and Sunday, or is this without that?
If we are able to get all of the 61 full-time positions full, we envision being able to return Sunday service.
So our budget is anticipation of returning, and this is starting July 1st, so we have a few more months to get those people up and going. So our budget is as if we are running our full-time hours, including Sundays?
Yes, that is what has been
Okay.
requested. And please note that it's not just drivers that we need. It's
Dispatchers.
critical that we have dispatchers.
Okay,
as well.
because I had expected to see a drop because we don't have as much hours, but I'm not seeing a drop because we're planning and anticipating to be fully staffed and back to full service.
Yes.
Okay.
Councilmember Carvalho?
Yeah, I got a quick question on your synopsis part, for the base yard. So the first phase is done at 3.5 million. And then I just want a clarification on the second part. I'm reading here the base part. There's a second. The FTA grant is also currently being processed.
Okay, so what we're exploring the getting better use out of the property that we currently have. Through phase one, we are that's where we're implementing the electric charging infrastructure, as well as expanding our repair shop facility so that it can service the electric buses that are scheduled to be in later this year. So with that, the second phase is what we're seeing is needing to expand the amount of space, parking area. So at this time, we're exploring different ideas about the water basin area that's there, and just trying to get a more effective use of that area that is there. So we're looking at basically two-phase construction in order to be able to get the sufficient space we need along with the electric infrastructure, charging.
So that would provide the space you need in general, everything, right? Once it's done.
We anticipate that, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Council Vice Chair Kaua'i.
Back to the question about the difficulty in hiring bus drivers and the shifts. So you answered that the shifts was 8 hours. Is that 8 continuous hours?
I believe,
You got rid of like the split shifts that you used to have before?
I would need to check if we have any remaining.
But if you do, it's
But
minimal?
if we do, it's very minimal.
Because I would have imagined in the past that may be a deterrent where people, don't want to work 4 hours, have 4 hours off, and then work 4 hours because it kind of cuts up their day, right? And is it a 40-hour work week?
Yes,
And do they get overtime?
yes, if they choose.
Okay. Now, if I'm reading the numbers right, it seems like the general excise funding went up from 47 million to 48.5 million. So with a $1.5 million increase. So where did that additional funding go primarily? Was it to purchasing buses or just spread all over?
I believe it's probably located in the roads and bridges section, because if you look one line up, the transportation was coming up about 200,000. So our section of that,
Oh, your section of that is pretty minimal.
right?
So that 226,000 in your synopsis is the right number.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it for now.
Okay, I have,
Councilmember Cowden.
yes, first of all, thank you for working hard on getting grants. It's good job. And are those grants already funded from the existing Congress, or are they at risk? You know how like federal government is maybe cutting some funding, so do we feel pretty confident, or are they at risk?
As far as we're aware of, we're confident that the funds have already been allocated. I don't know what other actions can be taken with funds that have been allocated for projects, but
If they're already allocated, then you get them. And if they are pending, they might not be. So they are already allocated. And then you told us during CIP, but I'm forgetting, when we're getting those buses, the electric buses, when are they anticipated to arrive?
we're looking at about July,
Of this
August.
year.
Yes.
And so have we identified who's going to be the drivers of those, and they're going to get training? I don't know if it's that much harder, but I'm sure they have to get trained on it, and then our mechanics trained, or we're set to go.
Well, we are meeting weekly within our agency and working through all of the details needed for this. So yes.
Okay, so
preparation.
by the time that they arrive, there won't be months and months of them waiting while we learn. Probably not.
Not that we anticipate.
Okay.
I have a question, or I guess comment on the electric fleet transition. It was interesting that you noted that it's a challenge, and it's not likely that we're gonna meet the goal by 2035 that the state set. Obviously, the state said it, not us, but I thought that was interesting to note. Can you just explain some of the challenges we've been facing in trying to create that electric fleet? I kind of know a bunch of them, but if you can just say them.
So, I mean, needless to say, it takes one space where you're going to be installing the infrastructure to do this. We've been learning a lot going through it. The initial award for electric buses was, I think it was dated 2017, that had come down to the Department of Transportation and was allocated. So just the process to get to the point of actually carrying out the procurement took until, was it 2023? Finally went into the contract. So just the procurement process was quite lengthy. We are doing it statewide as a coordinated procurement. So that initially took a while, and then the environmental clearances that are required in order to be disturbing ground tends to, that brought it out for at least, that was about nine months. Yeah. Sure. Yeah, please.
The other challenge that we have is the capacity. You know, we've been working with KIUC on our transition plan. There are concerns with the capacity to handle a whole fleet with their current operation.
That's interesting.
That's another challenge.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's interesting, especially just thinking about just our buses, but then I know that mandate was for the whole state, so that's a whole other issue in itself. But Council Chair Raposo.
Yeah, real quick question. You mentioned the transition is like a statewide effort in getting these vehicles. Do you know if we're using like a cooperative purchase agreement or a cooperative purchasing program for these acquisitions? I know that NACO has amazing opportunities that we should be participating in. I was just curious if we're using that statewide.
Hawaii has not participated in that to be allowed to be part of it. We just had not pursued it as a state. They are exploring that now, I believe. So we're hoping in the near future to be able to participate in those opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just makes a lot of sense because the purchase power it just brings the prices way down. It's already been negotiated, so we benefit from the lower prices just without having to go through all that negotiating. So we'll send some information over to you and to our purchasing department. Thank you.
Any other questions on this? If not, we'll move into the budget. We can start with the general fund, but there's not much to it. Actually, there's nothing in it. So let's start with Highway Fund, page 281. Most of the action is in the general excise tax fund.
Can I ask a simple question?
Councilmember Kaua'i.
I know during COVID we had this totally funded by the feds. It's a basic question, but has it ever been funded out of the general fund, or it isn't because it's not a county responsibility? Why is it that we're able to just totally do it out of the other funds?
Because of the general excise tax fund.
It's the 11 million. That's basically
Whatever we've sent over from general excise tax has subsidized whatever we would have funded from the general fund.
okay.
Highway funds comes from like road usage fees and
Gas,
stuff like
things like that. Okay.
Which is why it's very important for us to make sure we retain that GET funding. And, you know, there's always talk from the ledge about taking it back. And we got to make, because otherwise, yeah, our general fund will be picking up all this cost.
Did we not get it extended for another 10 years this time? I thought we had
No,
that done.
it's expiring next year.
I had a question on master page 283. The equipment line item for, oh no wait, never mind. Oh no, yeah, the equipment line item. Wait, is it my eyes? Oh, never mind.
Yeah.
That's the total. I was thinking have 3 million in the equipment line item with no description, but I must have been tired and I was looking at the numbers. Yeah, never mind. You guys want to just go to the general excise tax fund
299.
numbers, page 297, 298, 299. Council Vice Chair Kaua'i.
5 positions, just starting with 299. So in the admin, the 5 positions there, there's no vacancies and none anticipated.
That's correct.
Okay. And then,
Sorry, I need to correct that. We have an accountant who's considering retiring.
so either the 1 or the 3.
I'm sorry,
Of those 5 positions,
the one.
it's the accountant 1 that's considering retirement. Okay. And obviously, if that retirement comes fairly quickly, then you would immediately try to fill it. Yeah, because you need that position.
Yes, we need it.
Okay.
I have a question on the consultant services, project management and tech support for 183,000. What type of services is that, and who does it?
That we're with the capital projects that we have a contract with. Is it, yeah. We have a contract, yeah, for those who are helping us with carrying out the big projects, and quite often the federal funds that we have require matching funds, so these are utilized for that purpose as well.
Okay.
The automobile line item for 1.5 million. Is that just matching funds? Because it goes towards replacing 15 buses, so that's our match with the federal. Any other questions from the members?
Not on this section. Moving to operations.
Any other questions? If not, we'll move to operations. Council Vice Chair Kaua'i.
So on the positions, right? 22 vacant positions total. 17 of them are bus drivers, and then the five others. I'm going to start with the 5 others, and I'm going to address the bus drivers as a group. Starting near the top of master page 303, page 204, transit dispatcher 2. Vacant since October last year, 141 days. Fully budgeted at the low point of the range, 47,000 to 69,006. The recruitment status is continuous recruitment. So it's your intention to fill this position. How is recruitment going?
It's been quite slow.
Mm-hmm.
The applications for our dispatcher positions have been quite slow.
And you're working with HR, and you're hopeful that you can get somebody in there by July 1st?
Yes.
The next position is transit dispatcher 1. It says selection made. So, in the budget, this is position 9420, transit dispatcher 1. It said selection made, but you're only funding it at 6 months. If you selected someone, won't they be starting, and won't you need to pay them the full salary?
Yes, and I believe we have another vacancy within that, so we'll work with HR to.
So when this comes back, it'll be corrected in that if this is the position that you're filling full-time, it'll have a full-time budget.
Well, with that one, we also have the option of we have operating funds that would cover the other 50% that are the annual formula funds that are provided.
But in this budget, it shows a little asterisk or 2 asterisks when it is actually budgeted to be fully funded by another source, or 50% funded by another source, or I guess partially funded. But here it says what it says. So when you come back, it'll just be corrected with HR and all. Okay, and then the next one, same, transit dispatcher 1. That one's selection made. It is fully funded. So both positions will be filled and fully funded. The last one, 9405, is same funding, continuous recruitment. So you intend to fill that position. And then the last of the 5 non-bus driver positions is the mechanic helper. Brand new vacancy. So you're initiating recruitment. to fill it and get it in by July 1st?
We will soon be, yes.
Yeah, those are all the other positions. Now for the bus driver positions. In your narrative, you talked about 6-month funding that one position on the dispatcher, and then you talked about 6-month funding 3 of the bus driver positions. I went through this entire list here, and I noticed that there are 6 positions that are with the recruitment status of continuous recruitment. And then there are 11 positions with the recruitment status filled with short-term hire. Starting with the continuous recruitment one. In fact, one of those 6 positions, position 9439, I can't even find it in this list anywhere. So could there be a position missing in the budget? Or misnumbered?
We need to go.
Yeah, so that just make note, 9439.
Make
Position
sure.
9439, which is one,
It's at the bottom of page 282.
the bottom. So it's funded by another source? They're all here together at the bottom of page, master page 303, page 204. So if it is somewhere else, why is it there?
Where?
Yeah, it's in the, that position is in the
Which page?
282. Highway fund is dollar funded.
Oh my gosh.
This is just typed wrong on this one.
It's showing up on the vacancy report as 9439, and it's showing up as vacant, and it's showing up as GET fund. So if it's not here, and it's
Yeah,
somewhere
possibly
else.
position 9443 might have been typed wrong, or
Oh, okay, we don't have 9443.
yeah,
Okay,
because that's
maybe.
where 9439 ends up.
But anyway, so those are all continuous recruitment, 6 of them. And so how's that going? Are you going to fill the 6 by July 1st? Or are any of those, which 3 of those are 6-month funded? Maybe that's what your intention is, yeah?
6-month funded is 9461, 9463, and 9418.
9418. So 9418 is listed on the, and we'll get to that too, the vacancy report is filled with short-term hire. So on those 11 other positions, what does that mean, filled with short-term hire? Is this that 89-day
Yes.
hire thing?
It's an 89-day contract whereby the individual is participating in our training program in order to get fully licensed for a full-time position as a bus driver.
So other
Fully
follow-
licensed. So can you, not necessarily now, provide like some details on what this training program is and how it's going and what the longest position is there in the 89-day hire program?
When you say the longest position.
Like there's 11 of them. Typically, how long does it take to go through this program?
It used to take 3 to 4 months. However, with the more recent challenges, the requirements have increased over the
Right,
past
from the
several
feds, yeah.
years. at the federal level as well as, locally. So now you're dealing with individuals who have varying learning speeds. So we have recently had one who did it within a matter of 2 months, and we have others who are continuing to study and to prepare themselves, and it's been 6 months to a year.
I guess the real question should have been, but there's no difference. The funding is still the full funding because you pay them the full salary with all the benefits, even if it's 89 days at a time.
89-day on-call employees are hourly wage with no.
But the hourly wage equates to this, because you're fully budgeting them with the full salary, right, of $60,936. So the hourly wage you're paying them equates that.
If they're doing 40 hours a week, which particularly in the beginning they are, and actually throughout, if they're very available to cover shifts once they've completed their training, they can achieve that many hours.
And then the on-call is just, they're available, you call them, they come and work. They're not available, you call them, they don't.
That's correct.
They don't get any kind of compensation for being available.
That's correct.
Just you get called, you get paid. You come in, you get paid. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Kaua'i.
Excuse me. I'm not really sure I'm understanding.
Mike.
When we have somebody training, when they're driving this bus on this 89-day hire, are they driving the van that's been picking people up, or are they driving the bus they're not yet qualified to drive?
No, they're not allowed to drive.
Yeah, okay, so I
Right,
was
right.
thinking, how's that? So they're driving the smaller vans.
Correct.
Okay. All right, thank you.
If I could go back.
Council Vice Chair Cooley.
Are there differing hourly rates that, the pay on that?
Yes. The van drivers at a BC5
Oh, I mean,
level,
for the 11 bus drivers, I went back, sorry.
all of the bus drivers are the same.
Same,
Yes. If they're in the bus driver, they're at BC7 level
BC7.
within the Unit 1 collective bargaining agreement.
And then the van drivers are BC5, I see it here, right? So in this wages and hourly line item, which is 167,000, you list both on-call drivers 50%, and then X-bus BC7, van BC3. And there's 9 positions here. Are they a mix then of bus drivers, or these are the van drivers? What is this? How does this break down? Obviously by these 9 positions.
They come in as van, and then when they get their CDL with passenger endorsement, they are reallocated into the bus.
But this is primarily the funding for the van drivers.
For half,
Yeah.
right? Because half is covered by our formula.
That's
grant
right.
fund.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Any other questions? For transportation?
Wait,
Council Vice Chair Cooley.
I don't see it. No. Oh, here. No. I'll follow up in writing. I'll find it later. I think it goes back, so.
Okay. Thank you. Yep.
Thank you.
Next up is housing. Adam, if you want to just go over your synopsis and then we'll ask questions. I know you did pass out this other sheet. Maybe if you want to just go over that also after your synopsis, then we can take questions on both of them together.
Committee Chair Adam Reversi, Director of the Kaua'i County Housing Agency. Not much has changed in our operational budget. Our personnel costs have actually gone down slightly. We have, I believe, just one long-term vacancy for our construction project manager that we've been struggling to fill. My synopsis is fairly brief. I will talk about we've had a long-term effort to try to boost the number of Section 8 vouchers that we have issued on Kaua'i. If we go back to 2018, 2019, we were averaging annually about between 600 and 650, and our goal was to get to 1,000. So we have roughly 1,150 federally assigned vouchers to Kaua'i, and we have never used that full amount. So we did our best to get additional vouchers issued and reached a high during COVID up to I think our peak was just under 1,000. Since COVID, as people have been going back to work, we've had a number of people leaving the Section 8 assistance program, which is good in that it demonstrates that the recipients' incomes are increasing and they no longer need or qualify for federal assistance. But then I guess the downside is that we're potentially leaving federal money on the table for vouchers that we're not able to issue. As far as our development division goes, we, for the first year, have expanded our homelessness program with the grant and aid that was created by the administration and council last year, a $500,000 homeless grant and aid program. Those were awarded about 2 months ago to the grant recipients, so it's a little difficult at this beginning stage to talk much about the success and metrics of the grants that we've given out. But they have all been awarded to, I believe, 6 different projects on Kaua'i. Project Vision, their medical trailer and hygiene trailer was one of the large recipients. Family Life Center got a couple of grants. U.S. Vets received a grant to provide veterans housing assistance. I don't have all the details of the grant recipients with me, but I could get the detailed awards per nonprofit if you'd like me to follow up with that. Within our development division, we've got a lot of projects ongoing. We're ramping up to start our second phase at Lima Ola. So the vertical construction in phase 1 is nearing completion. All of the multifamily projects are completed. So that was 117 multifamily units. So we had a 40-unit senior housing project. People are moving in as we speak. We have a 45-unit workforce housing project, and we have a 32-unit supportive housing project for homeless families, all fully occupied. The multifamily, the 45-unit multifamily, and the senior housing project. People are moving in right now. The supportive housing project has been fully occupied since October. And we're already successfully graduating people from the supportive housing project to the nearby workforce and senior housing projects. So it's been a stepping stone to get people off the street and into permanent housing relatively rapidly. The 38 single-family homes in phase 1, the first 8 were completed and have already been purchased and occupied by new residents. The second 8 are probably 90% complete, and the third 8 are framed with roofs going on. So we're seeking the buyers for those next 16 single-family homes, and there'll be 36 in total when they're all built out. So I started out. We're on the verge of going out to bid for phase 2 infrastructure, which will be paving the way for another 175 or so homes. A mix like in phase 1 of multifamily rental and single-family for-sale homes in LA. Part of that project will also be expansion of the water infrastructure in LA. We're putting in a new 500,000-gallon water tank that will facilitate future phases of Lima Ola, and also support the surrounding community. We're also going out to bid shortly on phase 1 of the community center. So Lima Ola has a neighborhood park. It'll be built in 2 phases. Phase 1, which we're going to build first, is going to be pickleball courts, basketball court, picnic gazebo, parking with some electric car chargers, and a Portland Loo, a 2-unit Portland Loo, similar to the one at the Civic Center. Phase 2 of that we'll build a little later is a community center building with a playground, a commercial kitchen, a community meeting room, and an outdoor amphitheater space, and an eagle pit. So that'll be down the road. We're well along in the master planning process of the Waimea 400 housing project and the Kilauea town expansion project. So both of those are in the pre-development phase, where we're finalizing through a series of community meetings, finalizing a conceptual master plan that'll give the unit mix of multifamily and single family and the preliminary subdivision layout. And alongside that, we're conducting all the required environmental reviews, historical and cultural surveys, geotechnical soil sampling, etc. So that's underway. The third community meeting for Kilauea was about 2 weeks ago, and the third meeting for Waimea is on this Thursday, the 10th, from 5 to 7 at the Waimea Elementary. So you're welcome to come if you'd like. I think the only other thing I touch upon in the summary is as our projects have become more complex, the housing agency didn't used to do large-scale master plan subdivisions with lots of infrastructure requirements. So as our projects have become more complex, our internal tasks of finding staff to manage those larger, complex projects and the sort of complicated financing structures that are necessary to make them happen has been an exciting challenge. Let's put it that way, but one that we're successfully meeting. I think that's about it for my summary.
Council Vice Chair Kaua'i.
On your synopsis here on page 2 on the operational challenges, the question is about the HCV program. We have been so successful in raising this from 650 clients per year to 850. That's like a 31% increase. And I know you were, that was your focus a few years ago to figure out how to do this, knowing that there's so many people in need. But then on the other side, you say that, the challenges is the available units, right? So, and then you're saying that with the recent implementation of more vigorous federal housing inspection standards, so the inspections happen from our housing agency, right? They go out and do their...
Correct. So when we give a rental assistance voucher to a resident, it's their obligation to go out into the world and find an eligible unit that they can rent, whether it's at a county affordable housing project or just from a private mom and pop landlord. And before they are allowed to move in and we are authorized to begin paying their rent, we're required by the federal regulations to conduct an inspection of their home. And the inspection standards have become a little more rigorous lately and are on track to become even more rigorous. And it can be very simple things. The new regulations require that there be a smoke detector in every room of the house. That didn't used to be the rule. So we show up at a house and there's not smoke detectors. We're required under the federal regulations to fail that home, and they have only 24 hours to install smoke detectors in order for us to approve the home so that the tenant can then move in. And we have a little bit of discretion to give them a little more time, but not a lot. So that's an annoyance to new landlords who are unaware of the regulations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just thinking, so we primarily work with the tenants, right? So the tenants go and find the unit, and if the tenants aren't aware that these things have to be so in the unit, then they're not necessarily telling the landlords in advance, so then now they're not really ready for an inspection. And it might be a minor fix, but on the day of the inspection, you say you can only give them 24 hours?
after the inspection when they failed. So we have sent out notices of all the new regulations to what I would say the usual suspects, the larger land rental management companies, and the companies that manage affordable housing projects, EAH and Mark Development. So we've done our best to make all existing landlords who are in our program aware by sending them repeated letters and updates about these new coming regulations. But we don't have a way to spread, aside from articles in the newspaper or press releases, we don't have a way to spread that detailed information just to everyone who might not ever have been involved in our program before.
Can I ask real quick, does the tenant get a copy of these regulations? So if I'm a tenant, if I have the things, and I can give it to the landlord ahead of time, do we give the tenant any indication?
I would have to get back to you. I don't think it's a fairly lengthy checklist. I don't think
Yeah,
we
so
give that
maybe
to the tenant.
by now you've identified what are the common roadblocks. If you was just to make a cheat sheet and say, oh, this is what we're looking for, give it to the tenant, so when they go on their journey, they're one step ahead rather than, that might be an idea.
I can double check on that. So all tenants, before they are sent out with their voucher to seek housing, they go through an in-person orientation process and are given a fairly hefty compilation of paperwork. So we can look into making sure that there's something.
But there's, like I said, there's probably the common reasons why they're failing the inspections, and I would say just focus on those.
Then sorry, Chair. The other part of the difficulties you mentioned here, that 75% of the federal staff overseeing the statewide HCV program have been fired. So what does that mean? I mean, are we in trouble? Are we gonna?
We haven't, as of yet, seen a direct impact on our services or our funding. But we are regularly dependent on the Honolulu office to approve different programmatic documents, and their staff has been cut from 6 to 2 to operate the program in the entire state. So it remains to be seen when we do have detailed program items that need approval, whether that's going to cause delays. An example is so there's two types of vouchers. There's HCV vouchers, which is portable. You give it to a tenant and they seek out a unit. And then there's another type of voucher called a PBV voucher, which is assigned to a physical unit in a housing project. And we go through a pretty complicated RFP process to publicize the availability of project-based vouchers, and developers and management companies come to us to apply for those vouchers. Assuming we award them to them, then we have to go through a very lengthy HUD approval process to confirm their eligibility to receive the project-based vouchers. So we haven't had to do one of those approval processes since the staffing cuts happened, but that would be the sort of thing that could be problematic in the future if they don't have staff capacity to review those documents in a timely fashion.
Councilmember Cowden?
So follow-ups on that, just to help grasp the depth of this challenge. What we have 1,000, let's just say we have 1,000 HUD vouchers, housing choice vouchers that are available. What's our confidence that there's 1,000 units available?
1,000 willing units available because many landlords refuse to rent to voucher holders. So there may be 1,000 numeric units, but not, I would say, not willing units. It's difficult. We have gotten close to 1,000 in the past, but it's always a struggle.
So each year we give out vouchers. Once somebody gets a voucher, unless they start to somehow disqualify, they get to continue it, right? We usually hope that they're able to have stability for 5 or 6 years or whatever it takes.
Correct, and there are people who've had vouchers for a decade, so it can persist as long as they're compliant with all the program regulations.
So cumulatively, do we have any idea of how many housing choice voucher tenants that we have? Do we have thousands of them, I would think?
No, so we have a set. When I say 850, that's the number of live vouchers that are in use. So we have that's the cap. We can never go above.
Okay, so we don't have. That's not like 1,000. I was thinking if you've given out 1,000 every year, 10 years, you're gonna have 10,000 of them, but no, that's the cap.
Correct. It's a static cap imposed by the federal government. Our numeric cap is, I believe, 1,140. Our total statutory allowance of vouchers for the island of Kauai, which, in theory, will never change unless something dramatic happens at the federal government.
Because getting selected for it, it's like, what we call it, it's they pull numbers, right?
We have an ongoing wait list, and periodically we do what we call a pull from the wait list. Usually 100 to 200 names will be pulled from the wait list. They will submit their final paperwork to qualify for the voucher. Then we will issue HCV vouchers to a subset of that 200, because often we'll send out a 200 wait list invitations and 50 people won't even respond. So we'll then process 150 and we'll have some more drop out, and finally we'll issue vouchers to a subset of those individuals. They will then go out into the world to try to find rental units, and only a percentage of those people will successfully find somewhere to rent in order to utilize their voucher.
That's consistent with my experience. It's like winning the lottery to get one of these vouchers, and then people are desperate to find something within 6 months or 4 months, some allotted amount of time. So I get those desperation calls. A lot of times I just can't find anything. And probably the county properties are some of the best to get.
Well, all the properties that the county has developed or participated in the development of, including all tax credit projects, have a required preference for HCV voucher holders. So if you, like, for example, the Kaua'i project in Port Allen, which is not a county project per se, we assisted with a little bit of financing, but their waiting list is open as we speak, and they have a preference for voucher holders, which is a benefit to the company that owns the housing, because they have a guaranteed source of rent. They don't have to worry about chasing rental delinquencies, because they know that the county will write the check every month.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Any other questions on the synopsis? Yeah. Council Vice Chair Cooley.
I forgot to mention, so in the CIP budget hearing, Vice Chair Cooley had asked about this year, the Housing Development Fund, which is often called the Housing Development Revolving Fund, has been shifted from the general fund budget to the CIP budget, and it's just a line item, large dollar amount line item. So we have a significant balance currently rolling over to next year, and a significant ask from the administration in this fund coming up. So I prepared this 5-year projected cost estimate of based on the current development projects that we're working on. Just to give, and again, I want to be clear that other than the current year, these are just estimates. They're not based on actual bid amounts. They are good faith estimates on project costs based on similar projects such as Lima Phase 1 that we did get bids on, and we know cost per acre of these sorts of things. So this is just a generalized projection, both for my office's internal work and to give council an understanding of future financial needs, in part to justify the fact that we have nearly $28 million in this fund. And it's to also demonstrate in a graphical way the cyclical nature of development projects. So just this year, the state put together a online tracking tool to track affordable housing development in the entire state, and you can break it down by county. But statewide, because the funding and the efforts in affordable housing have increased in the last 3 or 4 years, but projects take a long time to go through the planning process and the entitlement process and the organized funding. So if you look at the state, the state online tool.
That's for
Five.
That's the first time in my life.
Five suits.
Somebody messed with my phone. They turned it on.
So if you look at development projects statewide in this online tool, It looks like a boa constrictor that just ate a deer or something. So there's this huge bulge in the grass, and the bulge is in the entitlement pre-development phase. And as that deer moves down the boa constrictor, it hits construction, the construction phase, and final vertical infrastructure, vertical construction, move in. So you'll see that we're in, with the budget numbers, we're in the entitlement phase, and the bulge is coming 2 to 3 years down the road when all the entitlements are complete, and we're moving into infrastructure installation work at both Kilauea, Waimea, and the future phases of Waimola, hopefully kind of all at the same time. So that just demonstrates that, you know, even though the current need on money going out the door right now is relatively low, that's because we're doing all this entitlement work. That's not incredibly expensive, but it is very time consuming. And when we move into infrastructure development, that's when the price tags go up, as shown in the chart.
Councilmember Kaua'i?
On the line item here, and thank you for the nice, easy to read big page. The emergency homeless shelter redesign, is that KEO?
Yes.
And so that's the little collection of houses, like that. That still hasn't been worked on. Not really.
No. So the KEO site in Lahui, near the Department of Water, has two different aspects to its facility. There is the emergency shelter, which is in the front of the property, and it's a dormitory-style building. It's got a men's section and a women's section and bunk beds inside. And then in the back of the property are some old trailers that used to be the housing agency's office when it was at by the convention center. And those have been converted into studio and one-bedroom transitional housing units. They are ancient and all in need of refurbishment and upgrade. So right now we're working with the architectural firm G70 to come up with a concept plan for the overhaul and redesign of the entire property, both the emergency shelter and the transitional housing units in the back, with the goal of dramatically increasing the bed count of both of the emergency shelter and of the transitional housing in the back. And one of the triggers to get us to start thinking about that, aside from the fact that it's very old, is that during COVID, the entire shelter had to shut down because we cannot, in an emergency like that and with sickness in the air, you can't put people in a congregate dormitory room. So our only emergency shelter on Kaua'i shut down during the entire COVID pandemic. So one of the goals, not just increasing the bed count in this rehabilitation program, is to eliminate the congregate shelter largely and to create kind of miniature, smaller rooms that will have a couple of beds so that it would make it more feasible to house people during an emergency like that. But it's also more in keeping with what's kind of nationally recognized as best practice. We have homeless people who are currently homeless on Kaua'i who resist going to the KEO shelter because of the lack of privacy, the lack of any personal space, the place to store your belongings, and so having smaller, more personalized rooms we think will be better as a matter of policy.
Yeah, I think that will be much better. So prior to COVID, I believe we had 19 bed spaces there. Do you know the bed count now?
So it has 30 in the emergency shelter. Has 38 beds, but they have a staff to occupant ratio, and the reason it was restricted to 19 for a long period of time is because KEO wasn't able to meet the staffing requirements to increase the number of occupants. So it was kind of artificially held low because of staffing issues.
So now it's at 38.
I believe they got some additional funding, and last I heard had hired staff to be able to occupy all 38 of the allowable beds.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Carvalho?
Follow up, Adam, on the Kaua'i Ridge, and then, of course, the registry department. Everything is all in place for that. And what is the size of the units again?
Yeah, so the first phase of Kaua'i Ridge is broken ground already. They have the dust screen up. It's across the highway from the Department of Water. So that's going to be in 2 phases. The first phase, which is mostly 2 and 3 bedroom apartments, is going to be, I believe, 96 units. The second phase will be 54, I think. The Rice Street Apartments, right across the street at the Central Pacific Bank building, they have all their funding approved. I believe they've gotten their grading permit done. The last thing that they were working on, and the reason they haven't started knocking the building down, is that they are legally required to relocate Central Pacific Bank. So they've the developer procured a new site for Central Pacific Bank in the new Kaua'i Safeway Shopping Center next door to where the mattress store is. And it's currently being built out. I think it's almost finished. So as soon as that location is finished, Central Pacific Bank will relocate, and we'll have dust screens going up across the street, and that building will be coming down for the new Rice Street Apartments, which is a first floor of commercial and 3 stories of apartments, about 66 affordable apartments there.
And I have a follow-up on that one.
Councilmember Cowden.
That's a public-private partnership or a private?
Public-private partnership. So it is a private developer. The county has provided a small amount of financial assistance and help in the application process for the developer to go to the state to receive additional financing.
Okay.
And it's a tax credit project, so it's required to adhere to all of the affordability requirements of the federal low-income housing tax credit program.
I was just going to ask that question, so thank you.
Council Vice Chair.
Yeah, along those lines, and then looking at this entire chart, it's awesome to see it all broken down like this. And then, the grant and aid program, 500,000, that's specifically for homelessness, right? I mean, and nonprofits that are working on that. With the county's ability to invest in more housing, primarily this is along the lines of partnering with private developers, but our extent of partnership is upfront in helping with necessary infrastructure, which probably should be government anyway, and then also with when you have the line pre-development, what does that include primarily?
It includes things like the soil sampling, preliminary engineering reports where we have an engineering company analyze all of the surrounding infrastructure from electric to water to wastewater, and assess the capacities of all of those things and develop, for example, at Lima Ola, in order to even begin to submit permits, you have to develop a water use master plan, which demonstrates to the Department of Water the regional capacity for all of the new units that you intend to build. It includes doing a cultural impact assessment, which is nowadays people are familiar with the word a Kaua'i analysis to demonstrate whether there are traditional and customary Native Hawaiian practices on the property and showing how the project will accommodate those practices over time. What else? We do preliminary assessments of the property to ensure that there's no hazardous wastes on the land if it's a new project, an environmental site assessment. We do extensive community meetings to come up with the concept of we want to propose to develop something that the community wants and desires and is happy about. And based on that, so we go through a lengthy community process to come up with a concept. That gives you a unit count. Then you use that unit count to finalize your environmental review, to do required traffic studies, because we have to go to both the county and the state to see if highway improvements are required, new turning lanes, new traffic signals, new roundabouts. So basically environmental, cultural, and engineering studies, preliminary studies required to even begin to develop your detailed construction and engineering plans, which is what you're going to submit to the building department and to the state to get actual permits to start digging. So it's, and then even to make it more complicated, most of our large projects are the county purchasing agricultural land, adjacent to existing town cores. So we have to go through a complicated entitlement process to develop a 201H application, which is a state statutory shortcut to both rezone and redistrict agricultural land to residential or urban uses. So we put together for both the Kilauea project, we did this for Limola already, but for both the Kilauea project and the Waimea project, we take all of that pre-development work and our concept plan, and we put together a 201H application, which has the preliminary subdivision map and the unit count and the number of the breakdown of the affordability requirements, and then we bring that application to council for approval. So council approves or disapproves our application or adds conditions, and that acts as the rezoning action. So we don't go to the planning commission, we come straight to council, and then after the council approves it, we have to take that exact same 201H application to the state land use commission to get state level redistricting approval. And once both of those happen, we have land that is now rezoned and considered entitled, and we move into the construction and engineering drawings that we submit for a building permit.
So it kind of sounds like, I mean, and it looks like you're pretty much, if I would say, kind of like maxing out your ability. You're working beyond what you have the staff to do, and it's awesome. I mean, I think it's necessary, right? We need so many units. But this line that says private development subsidies, can you give me an idea of what those are? And should we be investing more in there to get more? Because these are very solid county projects, if you will, even though we're not necessarily the primary owner, developer, what have you. It's big projects that the county has spent many years, like Limola, right, envisioning and bringing to life, really. But could there be more private, projects if we were supporting them more? And I'm guessing that's what this line item, private development subsidies, is. Because, while the 500,000 grant and aid program is small, what do we have a goal of how much money to put into this side for housing units in private development, whether it be for-profit or non-profit developers? Because I think I also heard you say small amount of financial assistance, and I know it's important too for the county to put some skin in the game when they're going to go after federal funds or tax credits and that whole leveraging concept, right? And is there more that we can do to get more private development?
So this is, let me explain what that private development subsidy is and how we use it. So both the Rice Street apartment project and the Kaua'i Ridge project received funds under this line item. Right? They're not. What's on here is just projections for the future.
Right.
So what we typically do, all those projects can't happen without state funding, and they all participate in the annual state funding application process, which is every February. It's called the qualified application. And the primary sources of funding that developers are seeking from the state, which has hundreds of millions of dollars, is so there's state pools of funding, the rental housing revolving fund, which gets hundreds of millions of dollars, the dwelling unit revolving fund, bond funds, and lastly, low-income housing tax credits. So together, those pools of funding are $300 to $400 million a year. And there are always more applicants for those funds than are available. And applicants are scored based on criteria that changes all the time. And one of the significant point benefits is county support and involvement of the project. And it makes no difference if we give them $250,000. So we typically give projects $250,000 as a zero interest loan that they don't have to even start paying back for 15 years. The money, the dollar amount of the funding is largely inconsequential to their projects, which are 25, 30, $40 million projects. But the fact that they get that $250,000 gives them 3 or 4 points on their application. Then when we waive through our affordable housing certification project, when we waive their building permit fees and their zoning use fees and the sewer connection charges, and we reduce their property taxes, that gives them additional points. And then we certify them for fast track permitting. That's even additional points. And sometimes they will even request from us that after they're seeking tax credit financing and it has a time period, that after that time period ends, that the land might revert to county ownership. All those different ways that the county puts their fingers in the pot increases the project scoring and makes it more likely that they will receive state funding. So this is a long-winded answer to say giving them $250,000 is just as valuable as giving them $750,000 or $1 million. So I think that to date, unless the state changes its scoring system, this is good enough for the type of assistance we're giving. Given the dramatic difference in ability and funding that the county has versus the state. So we're able to give them a little bit of funding, which doesn't impact our budget tremendously. It doesn't make a huge amount of difference to their to their bottom line, but it ensures that they can bring in all of the necessary state funding. Now, last year, I don't want to misspeak, it might have been the year before, there were 13 applicants to the state for funding and only 3 projects got awarded and 2 of them were on Kaua'i, statewide. So just these little amounts of funding and our cooperative involvement in these projects can make a big difference. So that was when the Rice Street Apartments and Kaua'i Ridge Phase 2 were approved, and also the rehabilitation of Kaua'i Village, the half that KHDC owns, also received tax credit financing.
Thank you.
I have a follow-up. Do you know how much that amounts to as far as tax credits? Like what the amount is? Because, I mean, when we passed like a lot of the initiatives along Rice Street, housing initiatives, I think the intent was to have market value homes there, you know, like close to infrastructure for like working class people. And then we kind of did all types of incentives, and it still seems like the LIHTC credit is so big that it still pushes developers towards low-income housing, where, I mean, we've got a lot of I'm not saying low-income housing projects are bad. We have a lot in the works right now, but we don't have that next step of housing, which is like workforce type housing. And I was thinking that Rice Street Apartments building would have been like the most perfect building for us to have workforce housing, because with county workers that could walk to work, you know, it's like right in the heart of the town. But the project went to LIHTC, which makes it like low income. I'm not sure what we're dealing with, you know, like what type of amount is the government giving them to make it so lucrative that they go to LIHTC versus doing market rate housing?
Well, I don't have exact dollar amounts for you, but I know that in the last year I was talking about when there were 3 projects awarded. Each of those projects were roughly $40 million apiece. So you got $120 million or so in projects. So that's about the level of
20 to 40 million, you said?
About 120 million in total. Each project was roughly a $40 million project, and I think there were 3 awarded. I could follow up with exact amounts. But, HHFDC actually has all of the awards every year on their website, so you can kind of look historically as to exactly how much they give out every year in the rental housing revolving fund, the dwelling unit revolving fund, tax credits. The way the tax credits work is you get a $2 million tax credit award. You get that $2 million in tax credits every year for 10 years. So that $2 million in tax credits actually equals $20 million over the 10 years of financing of the project. Part of the LIHTC program itself allows for middle income development as long as a percentage of the house is low income. The catch comes in the way the state scores projects. So they score projects the highest who are going to serve the lowest income families. So even though the federal program allows a project to be, say, 50% affordable with some 100% AMI units and even 120% AMI units, those projects can't get funding from the state because the state's discretionary scoring system prioritizes the lowest income projects. And we have struggled ourselves to find ways to serve that middle income group, the gap group, and unless you go fairly high end, the costs of construction are so high now that it is difficult to make a project, even serving people who are making 140% of area median income, pencil out because the rents, even though those rents would seem high to us, $2,800 a month, $3,200 a month still qualify. That can't pay the cost of construction at the interest rates that are around today over a 30-year mortgage. It's difficult. So I think that's why you see low-income production, and you see high-end production, and not a lot in the middle. Like at Limola, we're building single-family homes, and they're three-bedroom houses, $480,000 to $520,000, and people hear those costs and say, "Oh, that's not affordable," but it is by all the charts, and those homes are being sold at a loss. Every single home is $120,000 loss. Because the county has absorbed the land costs and the infrastructure costs, and our development partner is building the homes and effectively selling the homes at their production cost, so that they're not losing money, but the county is eating the land costs and the infrastructure costs. But we are selling them as leasehold properties. So that's the way, having invested the county taxpayer funds in the projects, the infrastructure, the land, the county retains ownership of the land through that lease process, so that we can ensure that the project stays affordable effectively forever.
That's interesting. I mean, I don't think we can compete with like a $40 million tax credit, but at the end of the day, if you look at the island and the type of buildings that are being built, we're building like housing for homeless, or building low-income housing, but none of them will be able to move anywhere because we don't have like this gap group housing anywhere. So everyone's going to get stuck. We're just going to keep building that. Ideally, it would be nice if we had another level that people could move into, so that it creates a gap throughout the whole ladder. But I don't know.
We are aiming to do that at Limola, Waimea, Kilauea. We are building rental projects for relatively low income households. But the single family, we have single family homes in all of those projects, and the goal is to meet those gap group needs.
It's unfortunate. I mean, we have to take it into our own hands, right? I don't think county should be providing all the housing to help the island, but I mean, at the end of the day, we end up doing a lot of housing. So. Council Chair Raposo.
Thanks for the materials. It helps a lot. The cost of construction is really high, and until we change the standards and allow more of these prefab and lower costs types of structures, we're going to always be in this predicament. Last year we raised the property taxes on resort and vacation rental, and what we expected to be about $9 million turned out, I believe, to be about $13 million in the increase. Are we currently looking at lands that could be used to offset the cost of the middle income or workforce housing?
We've been working, I don't want to share too many details, but we're working on a large land acquisition in Lahui, which would give us 100 plus acres, which would give us, following the Limola, Kilauea, Waimea model, it would give us another master plan project in Lahui, which is where our general plan and our employment statistics say we need the most new housing. So we're working on it.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the members on these?
Thank you for the good work you're doing.
We can go into the budget. Any questions on the budget? Council Vice Chair mentioned it, the $500,000 grant in aid for homeless. What type of projects do those go towards?
I could get you the full list with the dollar amounts, but I recall off the top of my head that we gave a significant grant to Project Vision, which operates a trailer that provides both hygiene. It has showers, and it also has a small mobile doctor's office. So they go into the community. I know that they go visit Salvation Armies. They in the past have gone directly to areas where there are homeless individuals to provide the kind of basic medical outreach, like wound care, hygiene services. We gave a smaller grant to U.S. vets to provide services at their existing veterans home. We provided a couple of grants to Family Life Center. Family Life Center is the only nonprofit on Kauai that they have an existing contract with the state to do outreach to homeless encampments. They're the only nonprofit already funded and established to do outreach work. And they place people, so they're the certified entity that places people into this, what's called the CES system, which is a federally required statewide computer system that registers homeless individuals, and it works through that system to try to connect them with other available services. So they're the outreach need is not met by the current level of state funding. So effectively, the grant to them is providing them some additional funding to do more outreach work than they're currently being paid to do by the state. It also, Family Life Center also separately got a different grant for one of they have several transitional homes for homeless individuals, and they got a grant for that as well. I'm forgetting.
Kaua'i Foundation and Kokua Mental Health.
Okay.
Those are the other two.
Mental health Kokua.
Or Mental Health Kokua.
Also does outreach work, but specifically with a mental health focus, as opposed to Family Life Center, which doesn't provide that kind of medical care and assistance.
Council Vice Chair Kaua'i.
So on master page 246, page 170, 3 vacant positions on the top. Senior project manager, vacant since September. I think, yeah, so.
So the senior project manager, that's our construction site manager. We have done 3 job solicitations to fill that position and have not found a sufficient candidate. We're going to go out again and try to increase the salary of that position a little bit. We're competing against the private construction industry, so effectively we're looking for an on-site construction manager with some background and an understanding of what civil engineering plans mean and construction standards. And the private construction industry pays better than we do, so it's difficult.
Then the next one is the Housing Self-Sufficiency Specialist 2.
So that position was required to become vacant due to a reduction in federal funding.
Okay, federal funding reduction. And is this next one senior clerk?
That is in our Section 8 division. So one of our clerks recently, I don't want to misspeak.
The status on the recruitment status is recruitment closes March 17th.
We had one of our clerks left our office and went to the DMV recently, I believe 2 months ago. So I believe we're already interviewing for that.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Any other questions on the budget? Any questions on housing programs? Any questions on collect book? or Pa'anao.
The only-
That would be the
The
end.
only question I have on all of these housing projects were the other services yet, the painting and all of that stuff, and I noticed in your budget, the year-to-date was very low. Does that mean you're gonna be procuring that before the end of the fiscal year?
So you have a significant increase both at Pa'anao and at Kalepa Village
Right.
on infrastructure work, remodeling, and stuff that was on last year's budget but deferred. So last year, we were working to switch management companies from, going into the details of from who to who.
Right.
But since those management companies, when we do those infrastructure projects, they're in charge of running and overseeing them, we didn't want to start any of those large capital projects under the prior management company. Our new management company came on board January 1. So we've deferred, we're trying to give them some time to get up to speed on the projects, get everything organized and ship-shape before doing those infrastructure. So we're pushing those off to next fiscal
So
year.
it's pretty much last year's money being rolled over to this year?
Yes, or budgeted funds that were never expended.
Okay. Thank you.
Those expenditures are coming from the maintenance reserve accounts for those projects, which are funded by the rents received.
Councilmember Paulin.
My question is really from the last group, but just a general piece. Are we still in litigation on the second half, the Lee Birch or Bill Birch part of Kilauea? Is that
So
that decision made yet?
So the county condemned the Birch parcel for our affordable housing project. We prevailed at the First Circuit Trial Court, and the county won. Mr. Birch appealed to the Intermediate Court of Appeals the dollar value of the land, not the actual condemnation process. The ICA, the Intermediate Court of Appeals, hasn't issued a ruling yet, but they did a month and a half ago issue a statement that there would be no oral argument. Usually that means that they're getting close to a decision, so we expect that there will be a final resolution of that in the next couple of months. And I don't think that there's a lot of risk in.
But we're going to have the property, so all the design and everything, we don't have, no matter what, it's going to be ours. It just might cost more.
Correct. Mr. Birch has already taken the payment, and the county has, through the First Circuit Court proceeding, the legal right of possession and control of the property. The ICA ruling will finalize whether the dollar amount to be paid was sufficient or not.
Okay.
And that will then trigger final recordation of title so that when you look on the real property tax website, it won't have Mr. Birch's name on it.
Okay.
Councilmember
Yeah,
Carvalho.
just a quick thing, Adam, under other services that Kaua'i legal water, 92,000.
Which is that?
Under other services, sorry.
Which page?
384.
This is for Pa'anao Housing Fund.
Kapana.
Water sewer?
Kaua'i Lehua water. Yeah. Is that the?
92,500. Negative number.
Yeah, I see it. I would have to research that. and get
I
back to you.
remember, okay, yeah, just asking. Thank you.
Any other questions from the members? If not, thank you, Adam. We'll move on to the elderly.
Hi, Emily.
Hey, Emily. So, if you want to just give us a brief brief synopsis on elderly, and then we'll ask any questions on that. And then from there, we'll go directly into the budget with any questions.
Should I state my name? The Emily Ishida, Incident Elderly Affairs Executive.
Can you speak louder?
Emily Ishida, Executive on Aging Elderly Affairs. Brought with me my accountant, Yolanda.
Yolanda Gomez Cummings, Accountant, Elderly Affairs.
Okay, so thank you for having us here. I was going to say it's our first time, my first time, so appreciate this opportunity. We're requesting an increase in our operations, as you can see, the 837, and it's primarily addressing to support our efforts for 2 core services. Our in-home services, which is our assisted transportation, personal care, respite, chore, and that is what we call our case management services, and also our home-delivered meals. As you can see, we work with the most vulnerable population on the island, and we're trying to provide access to just these basic core services. There is the reason for the increase in the demand for the services. As everyone know, no one is immune to aging. We're all aging. As caregiver burnout is real, and as the baby boomers age, it now puts pressure on them to take care of their loved ones, their parents. Everyone's still in the workforce, majority, and so they're relying on outside support, such as our agency, to provide what I want to call Band-Aid services. And so, just appreciate what the amount, the money we can do to provide these services, which are home delivered meals, which are the 5 days a week. These are lunch meal services, and the in-home services that I mentioned to provide these Band-Aid services to the community.
Any questions from the members?
Oh, simple question.
Council Chair,
Because this, the only real question I had was about this. Will this basically remove the waiting list that we have, or
Yes,
that we
it
had?
will. Yes.
This will do it.
Yes, currently. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's all I had.
That's great. And who is our service provider?
Or which service are you
Well,
referring
for
to?
the in-home, when people come, and the in-home services.
Okay, so in-home, we have a few of them. So our assisted transportation, we have Garnell Medical Transport. We have regenerative services. We also have master care. Those are for and Kaua'i Health. Those for in-service, in-home services. For home delivered meals, we have Samuel Mahilona, and we have Mom's Meals, which is not an on-island provider. They are in the mainland, and it ships to the consumers every 10 days. It's frozen meals.
Okay, well, that's great that we have a little bit more. I was happy to see that budget item increase. Yes.
I get one more. What's the second one? The frozen meals, moms.
Yeah, they're called Mom's Meals.
What kind of food they serve? I gotta ask. Is it like any local food, right?
No, it's not local food. Yeah, it's delivered. It's shipped via FedEx to their door, and they have to heat it up. And so for all the home delivered meals, it has to qualify as nutritional content, right? It has to have a certain amount of meat, protein, vegetable, starch. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Just right straight to the door.
Yeah. Sometimes that's more appropriate than the daily home delivered meals, because we do have consumers that it's just easier for them to have that kind of situation.
Yeah, that's interesting. Awesome. Thank you.
While we're on that topic, my only question from the budget was on that same thing. Are we experiencing any loss in federal funds for those type of programs, or did we get federal funds for those type of programs?
So because we're talking about the last fiscal year, we did receive some federal funds. Right now, we're not sure what's going to happen in the future, like everyone, but yes, it is anticipated to not get those federal funds.
And so the amount we increased for those home and community-based services and in-home services would be like the amount we would have lost from federal, or it's more? Or?
No, we took into account what the federal and state gave us last year. Yeah.
So it breaks it back even.
Yes. Yeah. So this doesn't take into account the potential loss or like the hit we might get from the federal funds or might not get, right? Yeah. So as of right now, this will take the wait list off and our current consumers. I don't know about the future.
So you would let us know
Yes.
if it's, when it's imminent, then we can make the adjustment.
Yes.
Thank you.
Council Vice Chair Cooley.
On your last page of your synopsis, I'm happy to see the operational highlights. As far as RSVP, the AARP tax aid program, and the Kupuna connections, have those been in line with prior years, or is it going up? I mean, we're reaching and helping a lot of people. I'm glad you shared the numbers here. So.
Yes, so Kupuna Connections is fairly new program.
You basically have workshops and stuff, and 348 attended or participated.
Yes, and
Pretty cool.
you know the neat thing about this program, there's direct services and indirect services, right? And so with the Kupuna Connections, we have elderly come and we teach them how to get online and utilize technology, and then it's pretty neat because we don't also see the impact of people that it's helping as well. So like their grandchildren, they're seeing them and they're sharing with them, and so it really directly affects everybody.
Thank you, Chair.
Councilmember Cowden.
I am looking at one of these job positions which says Aging and Disability Services Technician, and it says relocating position. Relocating that to where or what? So,
Reallocating.
oh, reallocating. Okay. All right.
I know.
Reallocating. So what are you reallocating? You're reallocating the...
Yeah, so we're starting at as a 13, an SR 13, and then once they come in, there's a few different tests that they have to take within the agency, and then we can reallocate them to a 15. So those are our boots on the ground, information referral specialists that go. So if anybody needs any services, they do the in-home assessment. Yeah.
So in the provisos that the mayor put forward of maybe being half-time positions, because I've actually been trying to recruit a little bit for this type of job, you know, and so it seems to me like maybe if you had, I'm just asking, is it possible, could that one be one that would split if it worked out, like if you had somebody half-time that lives in one region and half-time that lives in another region, because not everybody wants to have a full-time position that I think has these types of skill sets. I see people who are just constantly helping Kupuna. So, you know, and they just do it for free. And I say, well, how about get paid and maybe do it for the county? But I don't know that people could take it full-time. So when we have these provisos, do you know if that ability can cross into your area if you wanted it that way?
So sorry, I'm not totally
So
understanding.
the mayor has a proviso
Okay.
that says, you know, when we're having such a hard time filling positions, to be able to consider having half-time workers as opposed to no worker. So sometimes you can split a job into half-time, because a lot of these people who are really good caretakers have also maybe suffered themselves or whatever else, and maybe they got a bad hip or something, but they still help. But to go have a 40-hour-a-week or full-time job might be a little bit much, and they might live in one area or the other. So I'm just wondering, because we have this in here in the provisos, and I don't know, like I'm assuming we just say yes to all of that. Like I have no problem in splitting the jobs. Just didn't know if you were aware of that proviso.
It wasn't. I think anything is possible, but this position is definite need for a full-time position. Or
In the office.
in office, our staff is already stretched very thin.
So if you had 2 people in the office that are, no, that wouldn't be, okay. All right, I just constantly trying to recruit for that need.
It's a position that you have several of them. You have like 3 of them,
Yes,
right?
but in different areas of the island. So depending on what area of the island a consumer is inquiring about, we have the staff that go out to do the home visits to each side.
How long is the reallocation going to take, and are you recruiting, and will you fill it to start on July 1st?
We're hoping so.
That's the plan.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So if you know of anyone that, send them our way.
Do you know which side of the island that one is?
This would be for the North Shore.
Okay, I'm definitely,
Yes.
even yesterday, I was kind of pounding that pavement.
Yeah.
Good people.
Okay, yeah.
And they still have to drive into Lihue though, every day?
Yes.
Any other questions? Any questions on the budget?
Yes?
Councilmember Kaua'i.
I noticed that the salaries and the benefits, some of them went down. Is that because we've had retirees that are at the top of their pay scale? So that's why. So as we've had, top of the pay scale is going to be replaced with a little bit more entry level for that job position.
And then also we had Kiloha that was here for a really long time, and then I stepped into that position, and so there was a little bit of a pay difference, as well as the assistant executive. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for working.
Quick one.
Council Vice Chair Cooley.
You might have said something about this, but the grant and aid on 59,900, under there it says food distribution. How is that different from home delivered meals? What is food distribution?
So that's going to go to the independent food banks, the 2 of them on the island.
Food bank program.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, I think probably at this point, let's take our 10-minute caption break, and then we'll come back and do the final budgets, which would be county auditor and county clerk. So, thank you, Emily.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
10-minute caption break. Mike. ready?
We're ready.
Okay, welcome back. Welcome back. We're on our last few departments. We're going to start with the Office of the County Auditor. So, Jade, if you want to give us a synopsis on it.
Sure. Good morning, Council Chair Raposo, Vice Chair Kaua'i, and Committee Chair Kaneshiro, and members. The Office of the County Auditor's budget is just as you see it. The position for a county auditor as well as an audit manager, and the staff still remains vacant. The only funding we have there is for the county audits, which is the financial audits. We are in year 2 of 5 with our firm NNK.
Council Chair Raposo.
My only question is the year-to-date exceeds.
Mike.
Thank you. The year-to-date exceeds, is that going to be sufficient for the next year's?
Yes, it should. The year-to-date, the increase that we had to pay was due to the extra time that it took.
Oh, okay. So we'll be all right. Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Cowden.
What's the 30,000 on other services?
That is some kind of a cushion should the amount go over.
Okay.
Say they need more time or additional money for other things that they need to do.
So it's basically what we call the audited county financial report. Everything in here is that. Okay.
Any other questions for County Auditor Department? Okay, we'll go back to Council Services. Jade, if you want to just give a quick synopsis on it.
So thank you. The proposed, reading from our synopsis, the proposed appropriation allocates about 72.8% for personnel costs and about 1.5 or 27.2% for operating expenditures. Regular salaries make up the significant portion of our budget. Like with many departments, we are having difficulty with staffing. Fortunately for us, not as difficult as some other departments, but we just lost 2 clerical support people. We are actively recruiting, and that just makes it difficult for the staff that's here. Our aging infrastructure, as you I know are well aware, is a growing issue, both in this building and next door at elections. We had a sewage kind of a clog in the line, and it broke and flooded downstairs and was a mess. So we're hoping to work with the Department of Parks and Recreation to kind of clean that up and hopefully get a new, or at least have the line repaired. Meeting webcast is another challenge for us. With equipment compatibility issues, it's disruptive and prevented online, online broadcasts of both our council and committee meetings at time. And we apologize for that. We are trying to work with IT to kind of get that squared away. As far as operational highlights, 2024 brought in an inauguration of a new council member and a returning council member, so welcome. We passed bills, 15, there were 15 council, 15 committee meetings held, 36 bills, and 63 resolutions were passed. And then the rest would be project statistics if anyone is interested.
Any questions from the members on the synopsis?
Yes.
Councilmember Cowden.
So when we need to fix our sewer system, does that come out of the parks budget?
It would be
In CIP, but would it be CIP Is it parks because they handle buildings, or do we have our own CIP to sit there? Do you have to look at?
Yeah, so with the help of the administration, I know the chair was able to speak with our managing director. They put in some money for approximately $400,000 for the building. I'm not sure to do a CIP assessment. I'm not sure if it'll just be the building or if it'll also include the sewer line. But together with Public Works and Parks, we're hoping to address that issue.
So the assessment, like he asked about, well, is that going to paint the building? Since I looked at it and I saw here how the roof is a little bit exhausted on the elections building. Mm-hmm. So this assessment, that basically would look at what we need, get the budget, and find that out. So in next year's CIP budget, we would be fixing our building, or can we fix it beforehand if we don't want to be dumping raw sewage or raining on our ballots?
Right.
Those seem immediate.
Yeah. So I would hope whatever can be done, as the chair had mentioned, whatever can be done quickly will be done, and the longer term projects will be handled at a later time.
And the sewer line, though, we might have to pull some of that and redo it. We don't even know yet.
Well, from what we understand, the trees will need to be cut because I guess the way the root system, it kind of broke through the sewer line and a few places cracked it, clogged it, and that was the major cause.
Okay.
Council Chair Raposo.
Yeah, and I think your synopsis mentions the raw sewage that was in our basement. And, I don't sense the urgency from the administration as far as getting that fixed. And I think we need to get that done now. We need to get it done now. Even if it means transferring money from our reserve, whatever, that needs to be done now, this fiscal year. At least get somebody on board to do the assessment because we need to get that fixed. And it's not just the raw sewage, it's also the disruptions that we've had because the toilets have been plugged, and not necessarily to the level where you have raw sewage in our basement, but just the fact that our toilets are breaking because of the system. And we know, based on the work that they've done so far, that the trees are going to have to be removed, the pipe's going to have to be repaired. I'm not sure what we're waiting for. So for me, I think we need to get that done now. As far as, we had in a CIP budget, there's $400,000. I plan to move much more money in there because I'm waiting for a painting contractor to give me a ballpark about what it'll cost to get this building and the elections building painted. And that needs to be done as well. I mean, there's a lot of other things that needs to be done in this building that has been neglected for way too long. So I'm hoping that the administration heard me loud and clear and that we'll make the adjustments in supplemental. If not, we will. But this cannot wait. Raw sewage. When we had the fire, or the sprinkler systems went down, it didn't take long for the administration to move into action to get that fixed. So I don't think we should be treating it differently. That was raw sewage. That's not healthy. So that needs to be a priority, whether it's from our side or from whoever's in charge of the building side, but that needs to be a priority. I don't understand why it hasn't been. So that's number one. And as far as your other comment on the webcast, we're told that in the last week of April, they're going to come in and try to fix this thing. But let me just say this, and I'm hoping I can get the council support. If that doesn't do the trick, then we need to look at our own self-contained system so we can provide that service to the community. I mean, it'll be just us. Because this is crazy. It's every week, it's every week pretty much. There's some issue on equipment that is very old, very unstable, very unreliable. And, I keep getting reassured that, we're just waiting for the part, then the part comes in and it's still the same. So just, if it doesn't work in April, you can assure that I'll be looking at some funds for our budget for fixing it once and for all, because I cannot already. And maybe not a lot of people watch this webcast, but for those that do, it's important. It's important. And they want to watch it live. They don't want to watch it after the fact. So those are my comments on the, as far as the synopsis, and I think those two issues are critical and needs to be addressed.
Councilmember Cowden.
I have one other question relative to the raw sewage thing. Like, I didn't even know that happened. I've certainly known when the bathrooms are closed. When I think physically about how the building is set up, did that spill in our records area down there? You know, where we have all that paperwork? We have all those files and files and files there, so that would be just like when we had the fire sprinkler problem on our paperwork for engineering and building. That's a big deal. Like,
This is the very bottom.
but you know how that, I mean, it's just on the floor. But I mean, is it in that same room where we have all those? It's not the same room. Okay. Oh, there's a level below that level? Oh, I haven't done enough exploring. Okay, so it was below that. All right. Okay.
Any other questions? Not, we'll move on to elections.
Oh wait, I had one.
Council Vice Chair Kaua'i.
On the recent vacancies that you're working to fill, the E53 and the E2901, they're both council services assistant one. One of them is showing 47,004. The other one's showing 48,946. On the vacancy report, it doesn't show a range for the salary for that particular position. Is there a range, and is that why these are different, or should they be the same?
No, there is a range.
Okay, thank you.
And I have a follow-up on that
Councilmember
one.
Cowden.
While I've been out being an employer recruiter, can we in that one have a halftime, like do it like with the proviso where it's not like if we had two people instead of one? Because
We would prefer to have
One.
full time.
Yeah.
Because they would be staffing the meeting, and they would also be transcribing the minutes, posting the agenda, and things like that. So we have been fortunate to, just last week, interview.
oh, okay. And so this isn't the transcription position. It is. Okay. All right.
Any other questions? If not, we'll move on. Elections. Lyndon, you want to give us a synopsis on it real quick, and then we'll go into the budget.
Morning, everybody. Lyndon Yoshioka for the record. So for the elections budget, we are requesting 1.4,940,000, of which will be for personnel costs, and the remaining 32.6% for operating expenditures. And this represents about a 1.1% decrease. And that is fairly typical for an off-election year because we don't have all of the expenses. For challenges, for operation our size, the mail voting operation has always been a challenge just because there seems to be a trend of ballots being returned like on the day before and day of. So just as an example, on election day alone, we received about 6,470 envelopes, about 24% of the total. And it does take some time to process those envelopes because we not only got to receive them, but we got to check signatures, all of that. So on the day before and day of, we received 9,000 envelopes, or roughly 33% of the total amount returned. And in total, that took us about 40 hours to process. So I think I started working at about 4 in the morning on election day. We didn't get home till like 9 or so the following day. And we just do that because we need to get stuff out. We want results to you all and not keep anybody hanging. So that's a challenge. What compounds it also is in-person voting, like mail voting. We see a trend of people showing up on the day before, day of, and on those 2 days, we serviced about 56% of the total amount of people voting in person showed up on the last 2 days. So I don't know if any of you passed on election day, but the line was pretty long. We do encourage voters to not wait till the last minute, but if they choose to do so, then we will process them as quickly as possible. Like Jade mentioned, we also have facility issues. Immediately before the election, we had a brainstorm and the roof gave way, and it was fairly close to the equipment we used to process envelopes. So luckily, it did not, dampen equipment, but it was a close call. And we also found during the course of inspections that there are other portions of the roof that might be suspect. So that's a concern going forward. For highlights, the scanner sorter worked well. It does significantly increase envelope processing throughput. And we are also looking at trying to see if we can adapt that process for other election mail. We did do senior outreach, which was very well received, and we will be using that as part of our ongoing voter education campaign. We also reestablished a digital voter education campaign consisting of targeted ads, and it worked out really well. I mean, we did lead the state in turnout, and it's estimated that this type of campaign can account to an additional 2 to 3% turnout. So we will be using that again for subsequent elections. And the final thing is, next door we were fortunate to find good temps, so we opted to keep them on board because a lot of us are at the age where we are looking to move on. So we need to find bodies to replace that institutional knowledge and expertise. So that's all I have.
Councilmember Kaua'i.
Thank you for all that you do and for this transition. I have 2 key questions. Like when I look at the regular salaries, I just couldn't quite figure out, like 22, 23, 24 were so much less than 25 and 26, and we have 2 really important positions open. So we're not like necessarily paying that salary. And then in this, what we're going into this upcoming year isn't an election year. So I'm just assuming that we have to hire more while we're running an election. So there's just something I'm obviously not understanding of what brings the salary level up in a non-election year, especially with 2 key positions open.
Well, we are just exiting an election year, so normally you would see a significant reduction in staff. However, because we found people that we felt were a good fit, we kept them on board. So that's why you don't see as significant a drop in the salaries, because we kept people on board and we'll retain them going forward.
Okay, and because is anybody then, when we think about succession, leadership succession, when we thank you for kind of doing 2 jobs at once, but is anybody in there looking to be the elections administrator? Is somebody being trained up to take that open role? Okay. And then the other one, I'm just curious, I don't quite understand. I'm not surprised to see $50,000 in postage and freight, but when I look at 2022 it was 42,000. And that was all mail-in ballot, right? 2022 was all mail-in ballot. 2024 it goes down to $790, which seems like way, way, way low. And then it goes up to 50,000. So can you just help me understand the postage and freight expense?
Yeah, so what we need to do is actually fund a postage account that is used to mail out the ballot envelopes. It is all mass mail on Oahu using a postal indicia. And because it does take some time for that funds to move from our account, it is normally put in there at least a fiscal year before.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Yeah, and just even knowing what it costs to do a mailer is so much money. So that's, and you would probably, right in the election, you probably cost you more than $50,000 to mail all those, because you have about 4 mails, right? You have the voter registration piece showing that they're registered, and then you do that seemingly like once or twice, and then you do twice the ballots.
Correct.
And you can do all that for $50,000?
Well, we already have some monies left over from, we don't, you know, after the election, that account is not zeroed out.
Okay.
The monies just stay there because, again, it takes a while for funds to be replenished, so.
Okay, thank you. That's my question.
Councilmember Holland.
I just have a question. I'm assuming that we've saved a huge amount of money by not having as many in-person polling places. Is it a huge, and I ask because I hear a lot of people during the last 2 election years still think that they have in-person places outside of the Hue. And I don't know if it's, if it is hugely expensive, I understand. But if it isn't, I think it would be beneficial to at least have maybe 2 other locations on either extremes, like somewhere on the west side, somewhere on the North Shore, for people, and or some sort of huge lift in education that just educates people about how early they can vote in person and not wait to that last day that you're talking about with that last rush. And it's, I don't know, I think it's, I hear people and either they're nostalgic about voting in person at the school that they always did and their parents took them to or something, and it's nostalgia, but there is some sort of, I hear it a lot too, that there's a request for in-person voting on the day of. Yes, I'm just kind of flagging. I'm guessing it's money.
Not so much money, but
Coordination.
money to some respects, but also a reduction in the complexity of how things occur. If you were here on election day when we ran polling places, it was like crazy chaotic because of all the moving parts.
Right.
That was one thing. The other issues were, despite what people may say, you know, man, we were having such a hard time finding people to be willing to spend that entire day at the polling place.
Right.
We were faced with, even on the day of the election, sending out staff to reinforce polling places that did not have enough people to operate at a proficient level. And, you know, I was mentioning to Jay, if it got to the point where we couldn't find bodies, we would have no choice but to just fold that polling place and have people go to adjacent facilities. So, yeah, it was a combination of issues. You know, regarding the desire to expand in-person voting, you know, of course, that's always a possibility, but that would require revision of the voting system contract, because right now we do not have those pieces of equipment to fully equip outliers. And I don't know how long that would take, or how long it would take for the equipment to be manufactured and tested and you know, being ready for use. These things just, you don't go to Costco and just buy them.
Yeah, so maybe the answer is just some sort of educational material in advance of the election, like, hey, this is an election year, be mindful, you can only vote in the way, you know, I mean, hopefully every year that it goes on, it becomes more easy, but it just seems that there is kind of just people that get stuck in the old ways, I guess.
Councilmember Collin.
So I'm backtracking a little bit to page 17. This is council services. It says $600,000 for performance audits. So that is money that we can set to function the auditor, to handle the auditor function for this next upcoming year. So if we have audits that we want to ask for in this next upcoming year, it will come out of that line item.
Right, and there is a process that you would need to follow.
But there's money available.
There's money available.
Okay.
Other question?
Council Vice Chair Cooley.
On the synopsis for election, and you talked about it earlier about the facility issues, I just wonder, is this scanning, sorting equipment, is it like a machine, like a copier kind of, like a big thing that sits up on wheels, or? So as far as like flooding, it's off the
Oh,
ground.
yeah, it's off the ground.
And then the other thing is because the one of the problems was the storm and the rain and leakage, right? Have you thought to cover it with like a plastic thing? My washing machine and dryer, we cover it all the time with this cover because of the sea air and the salt and the rusting. Yeah. Okay, that's all. Thank you. Thank you,
Quick
Chair.
follow-up. But that machine isn't going out to the, if we were to open up district voting areas outside,
the
that
county.
wouldn't be going out, right?
Oh, no,
Just
no.
the voting machines, right?
Yeah, the voting equipment, that machine is strictly to process incoming ballot returns, yeah.
I would, if possible, if we can take a look at what it would entail, and not at every voting district, but maybe we definitely need one on the west side, and we definitely need one on the north side. I'm not sure what that would entail as far as manpower and contracts, like you mentioned, but at least take a look, because I think that west side, a lot of people didn't vote because the traffic was backed up, and a lot of people thought they could go to their school or their neighborhood center. But yeah, I'd be just curious to figure out what it would entail, and if it's even doable.
Any further questions? If not, thank you.
Thank you.
We are done for today, and we're actually done with all of our budget hearings. So thank you everybody for all of your
I do
hard
have a
work.
list of callbacks that I'll be submitting for tomorrow.
So I should not cancel budget callbacks? So be ready. Nah. Yeah, I just want to thank everybody for the productive budget session. At this time, and hearing no objection, I would like to adjourn the departmental budget reviews. I'd also like to cancel all of the budget callbacks, which were scheduled on an as-needed basis for April 8, April 10, April 11, April 14, and April 15, 2025. As a courtesy reminder, the public hearing for the two budget bills and the real property tax resolution will occur on Wednesday, May 7, 2025 at 5 o'clock p.m. here at the Historic County Building. And with that, thank you. We're done for the day.